Can we talk N8N AI agents for a sec? Like, are people taking this tech, selling them to businesses, producing a positive return on investment for the businesses, and then making some profit on the side? Or is it all just a bunch of hype? So, from what I can tell, it's all just a bunch of hype. I've sold several hundreds of thousands of dollars of AI automations over the course of just the last few years, and I'm not going to bury the lead here. From what I can tell, the current iteration of N8N AI agents is not at a point where you can realistically and reliably produce a return on investment for a business that you couldn't do easier and better through more conventional automation means. Conventional here just means the old left to right flow, where you execute some trigger and then a bunch of actions occur immediately after. Now, I'm not saying this because I hate AI agents or I think AI in general is a bad technology. I run my entire life using artificial intelligence at this point. It makes me all of my money. It's all I talk about. It's most of the content that I consume. What I dislike is I dislike some of the claims that I'm seeing where this N8N AI agent runs my entire life. It completely manages my business. It does my laundry. It pleases my wife, right? Anytime you have some sort of technology or solution that supposedly does everything and cures everything, you should be a little bit skeptical about whether or not it actually does what it's claimed to do. This sort of thing is actually really common throughout history. Anytime a great technology is predicted and announced before it's actually fully developed, you tend to have a big hype bubble where people overestimate the ability or capability of the current levels of technology. It's not the first time it's happened, certainly not going to be the last time, especially in our industry. But I think if we're being honest with ourselves, and if we wanted to produce the largest possible return on investment for the customer, these N8N AI agents just ain't it, dog. They are not at the current level where you can reliably provide them as a solution to anybody and expect to make yourself a lot of money. And that's ultimately all I care about. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. I have a very simple N8N AI agent open here. And what this is doing is it's getting a chat message. After I get the chat message, I am then communicating with the AI agent through an OpenAI chat model, GPT-4o Mini. We're then storing the message history in the window buffer memory. Then on the right-hand side here, connect to this little tools diamond, I got a bunch of tools. I could create an event in Google Calendar, send a Gmail, send an HTTP request to some weather API if I wanted to. I could calculate stuff, search up stuff on Wikipedia, and then I can also access some vector store that I put together. In this case, that just references the Bitcoin white paper. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of people say stuff like this N8N agent runs my entire life. The reason why I'm doing this right now and showing you guys what this looks like is just because Like, why do people like this stuff? Because it looks really cool. It has that wow factor. When you put a message in, you're like, hey, how's it going? It responds to you, I guess, sort of like a human would. When you ask it to do something for you, please book me a calendar event for tomorrow called Nick's birthday, 2 p.m. When you ask it to do this stuff, all right, it actually goes down the route. It creates the calendar event for you, and then it feeds a response back, right? That stuff's pretty impressive from the bird's eye perspective. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this can do stuff, right? We're at the current level of technology. We can actually go and it can do stuff. But the fact that it can do stuff for you doesn't necessarily mean that this can do stuff for businesses to produce a positive outsized ROI. All we're really seeing at this point is we're kind of seeing like a personal assistant. And it's a nice personal assistant, but you got to keep in mind that this isn't 100% reliable. AI agents, as basically everybody here knows that is screwed around with these things, they have a failure rate anywhere between maybe 1% to 5% per query. The better the model is, the less likely the failure. But keep in mind that since you're communicating with this flexible model, it's not always going to get your category right. So sometimes you'll say, hey, can you book me a calendar event? And then maybe it'll do some HTTP request to the weather API with some field called calendar, right? It'll hallucinate. It'll invent some stuff for you. So as somebody that's sold several hundreds of thousands of dollars of these AI automations to businesses, the number one thing that businesses tend to care about is they tend to care about ease of use, and then they also tend to care about reliability. A business has a very small window of available things that it does repeatedly in order to generate a return on investment for itself. The more flexibility and randomness and variability and unreliability that you throw in, the less valuable a solution like this will really look to a serious business owner that wants to produce some sort of outstanding ROI. Okay, now contrast that with this flow. This is an older school, more traditional looking automation where we have 3 simple nodes, a webhook that catches the request as it comes in. Then we are still using AI in the middle, and we're also creating a calendar event over here on the right. And I want you guys to see that this is the same sort of flow that people have been building for the better part of the last 20 years. So there's nothing really new here. But because we're using webhooks And because we're using precisely formatted procedural events, basically the reliability of a system like this is, hundreds of times higher than that of a flexible AI system. And I want you guys to see that we're still using AI in the system, okay? We still have an OpenAI model or node. This node is pretty cool, right? It's actually doing something, as I'll show you guys in a second. So typically the way that stuff like this works is I'm just going to test this. We have some webhook URL that we'll paste in. Then you can add a parameter. I'm going to say March 13th, 2025 at 1 p.m. So instead of communicating with it in, through some chat interface or whatever, you might have an automation that takes the date of some trigger. Maybe it's, I don't know, your client books an onboarding call with you or something. Then you just grab the date and you can literally write it in plain text, like natural language, like I'm doing right here, March 13th, 2025 at 1 p.m. Okay. When you paste that in, and I'm doing this through a GET request, which is why I'm getting that black screen, but that doesn't really matter all too much. When you paste that in, you end up getting that event inside of N8N with the date. We're going to feed that into AI. We're going to test that step. That's going to convert it into our nice ISO 8601 format. That's just a standard that a lot of calendar systems use. And then finally, we will test this too. And we've now booked an event. So why am I showing you these two systems? Despite how much more boring this one looks, businesses prefer this sort of stuff. Businesses prefer this sort of stuff because it works. It's like Old Faithful. It's the same reason that I don't know, when like a new car model is made in the first year or something, a lot of people that know cars typically don't like buy that model of vehicle. Why? Because they don't want to drive something that has a much higher probability of breaking down or whatever. So businesses prefer like kind of the Old Faithful approach the vast majority of the time. And in addition, the benefit to a system like this is substantially easier for a developer to set up. It's also substantially more extensible. And it's also substantially more maintainable. Okay, this is basically a Lego block that works 99.9999999% of the time. It's like a pipe, basically, in some big offshore drilling rig pipeline thing. You can tell I don't know my oil terminology, but hopefully you guys get my point, okay? It's a part that you could swap out for something else. The AI agent sort of thing it's not a defined part, it's a squishy, malleable thing. And while that has a lot more potential over the course of the next few years than something like a rigid, inflexible part, right now it's just not really at the point where it can actually hold up the structure for us. It can't really do anything of value. So you can imagine hundreds, if not thousands of different ways you could set up the same logic that I did there with that little GET request, with the webhook, with the OpenAI node in the middle, and with the calendar booking. But if you set them up, they'll be 100, if not 1,000 times more reliable. They'll be substantially easier to interchange with other elements and stuff like that. And then the best part is you could always weave that flow into a future AI agent that actually has the capability to do this sort of thing more reliably in the first place. Now that you've seen what sort of the new school versus the old school way of doing things is, and you sort of compared a little bit between the two, I want you to ask yourself, what intrinsic value does the first have that the second doesn't? Basically, if we just be super realistic here, the only real difference is the first had a little chat window. So you got the perception that you were chatting with some sort of assistant or some agent, right? So that's sort of the benefit. And it is a benefit. It is cool to some people. Some people work, they do everything out of their phones, for instance. They don't want to have, a form here and then some CRM there and some other system over there. Although, if we're frank, if you're going to use an N8N AI agent to update a CRM, I guess the unspoken assumption is that you are going to be using that CRM at some time. But I digress. That is a benefit. The fact that you have this one super cool, simple screen, you can host it on a website, embed it on your phone or whatever, and that's fine for less technical business owners. But what is that coming at the cost of? That's coming at the cost of reliability, where the AI agent will sort of muck up your request maybe 1 to 5% of the time. So, 1 in 20 requests that you make just aren't going to work. You might be under the assumption that they're going to work, but they aren't. How much money does it cost you when 5% of the time, or 1 out of every 20 times, or whatever the actual number is? For crappy prompts, it's going to be much higher. For really good prompts, it might be a little bit lower. How much is that going to cost a business that relies on this AI agent to do everything? Well, it's going to cost it about 5%, right? Like if you're using this to update a CRM, if you're using this to send emails to people, critical emails, if you're doing this to, add things to some sort of project board or tracker, if you're doing this to automate some sort of cool task that maybe has to do with creating content, you're essentially capable of doing 5% less. There's also some potential issue where, because you assume that some asset had been created or delivered, that might cause some runaway effect and actually impact your business more than that 5%. But I'm just going to cap it at 5% for now. And that takes me to really this equation that I'm going to put together. The benefit to these AI agents is basically you get a chat box. You get that little like cool factor, which is nice as a business owner. The cost though is you have, I'm going to say around 5% unreliability. So basically what you're doing is you're giving up, I don't know, man, maybe about 5% of your freaking business for a little chat box that's cool. Any serious business owner isn't really going to give a crap about that. They're going to want to hold on to the 5%, which might be, $50,000, $500,000 a year, whatever. But like most things in life, there's more. There's another hidden cost that a lot of people don't talk about. And that's that the prompt engineering of a lot of these built-in N8N AI agents, that's not how you spell engineering. The prompt engineering is usually trash, okay? And it's trash. Some of it being trash is actually outside of your control, so you can't fix it. And that leads to some really funny situations where you'll send somebody an email using your N8N AI agent assistant that you think is super smart or whatever, and it'll just be a trash email. There'll be tons of emojis in there. There'll be weird confettis. Things will be formatted really oddly. The tone of voice of the model is going to be weird. Like as a business owner, you've lost a substantial amount of control over how you're perceived. And a lot of the time, this is in contact or communication with customers. And it's like, if you screw up the contact or communication with the customer, if you make them feel weird or something, even a little bit, that can have massive downstream effects on your ability to close a deal, especially for one of these SMBs. Not even talking about what happens at enterprise businesses where that sort of perception might be even more important. So speaking of funny situations, I just had it send an email to me, nicholasdrive@gmail.com, supposedly wishing me happy birthday. Okay. And it's responded with, I've sent the birthday wishes to Nick at nicholasdrive@gmail.com. If I click on my Gmail, when I open this, hey Nick, happy birthday. I hope your day is filled with laughter, good vibes, perhaps a little bit of cake, smiley face. Remember, age is just a number and you're still young at heart. Enjoy your special day and celebrate however you like. Cheers to another year of adventures ahead. Best, your name, right? It actually went ahead and it sent the thing without even signing my name in it. So these sorts of minor issues, like they happen to me. And if you think about it, I'm a very technical person. So are most people that are watching this video, right? You guys are AI automation specialists, AI engineers. You run some sort of digital business, most likely, overwhelmingly. I know a portion of you don't, that's totally okay. But I guess the point that I'm making, like, if we have problems like that with this sort of technology, what is the average SMB business owner going to have struggles with? Probably 100 times what we're having a problem with. And then what is like an enterprise business owner going to have struggles with? Maybe a person that doesn't have the time, maybe the director of a business that's, super rigorously scheduling every moment of their calendar. Can you really afford a calendar screw up every week? No, obviously not. I got one more drawback that I just want to make you guys aware of. And this isn't a drawback that I think is permanent. We'll definitely be able to change this with time, but I got my AI agent over here, right? One thing that typically tends to happen with chatbots that I've sold in the past is at some point, the AI, because it's flexible and it can produce a variety and range of responses, it'll produce something that the person, the business owner or the director or whoever's using my tool doesn't really like. And so when it produces something that they don't really like, usually they'll send some request in saying something along the lines of, hey, I don't really like how it talked about this, or seemed kind of weird when it talked about that. Would you mind making some changes to it? Yeah, just tweak the model a little bit, right? That tends to be most people's understanding. So you can't actually tweak the model a little bit. What is you tweaking the model? It's you doing a little bit of prompt engineering. You can certainly reduce the likelihood that that's going to happen, but you can never eliminate it completely. And so because of that, these models and these AI agent solutions, they're actually very difficult to maintain. They're actually very difficult to upgrade. Basically, you have no control over the upgrade of the system because the vast majority of the technology that's driving this isn't actually yours, right? It's this open AI chat models, right? It's the AI that, OpenAI has been cooking up for the better part of the last few years, training for the last 6 months on millions of GPUs or whatever. You have very little control over actually being able to upgrade the intelligence of the model. You can make a couple of prompt engineering hacks and techniques, but that's just you crossing your fingers and hoping that it'll do what you say, like maybe a bratty teenager or something. Hopefully it didn't hurt any feelings here. Just want to make it abundantly clear that I do think this technology is really cool. I do think that there's a ton of potential in it. I just don't think that N8N AI agents, as they are right now, are at the level where you can realistically charge large multiples on the time that you are saving the business owner, aka a little chat window. And I don't really think that these things have any intrinsic value that a procedural or linear or more old school left to right workflow has. I actually think that this is more detrimental to a business than anything else. So I believe in this so strongly that I put out a template a couple of weeks ago using an AI agent. I've just refunded everybody that's purchased that template. I've just decided to put it up for free. So if you bought my Upwork AI agent at some point in the better part of the last 2 weeks and you haven't received a refund at some point in the next 3 to 5 days, let me know. We're going to have to queue that up for you. But I just want to make it abundantly clear that this technology is great. It's very demoable, looks really nice when you're zoomed out, looking at things through a spyglass. But Business owners don't look at the technologies you build for them in that way. They tend to go up close with a magnifying glass and scrutinize the hell out of it. So just want to avoid, some trouble, save you guys some pain, I guess, in the future. Really appreciate your time. Had a blast making that video. If you guys have any questions on any of this, let me know down below. If you guys disagree with me on something foundational or fundamental here, I'd love to hear about it. I'm not afraid to have a conversation or discussion with you guys in the comments, or even make another video about this more longer form, maybe addressing them one by one. Happy to do whatever it takes to just help slow this hype bubble down a little bit. Otherwise, if you could do me a big solid, like, subscribe, get me up to the top of that YouTube algo, and I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks so much.